Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I have the best chocolate cake box cake mix hack to share with you. I have one of those posted on my channel already, but this is it. If you have a cake that you need to make for whatever reason, a birthday cake, a party, an anniversary party, anything, make this. And also I'm going to go ahead and share the frosting recipe with you. And I've been trying to save the frosting recipes and put them all in one video. I'm using a store-bought can of frosting, chocolate of course, and I can't save it. I gotta share it with you now as soon as possible because it is so good and it's so easy. So definitely stay tuned for this recipe. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be your go-to favorite chocolate cake and chocolate frosting recipe. So let me show you what I did. Okay, let's get started. I'm so excited to share this with you. You're going to love it. Definitely try it. So we're going to start with a Devils Food box cake mix. I am using Duncan Hines brand. I've come to love this brand. And we're going to look at the back of the directions, and we're going to follow it, make some additions, and make some substitutions. So we're going to start off by adding one cake mix, and this is a 15.25 ounce cake mix. I'll tell you what to do if you have a 13.25. They have changed the amounts of their cake mixes recently, so I'll tell you what to do here in just a second. So go ahead and add your cake mix and then one package of instant chocolate pudding. And here's the first secret ingredient. Instead of the water like it calls for on the back of the box, we're going to add 1 cup of coffee, room temperature coffee. The box calls for 1 cup of water. You're going to add 1 cup of room temperature coffee. The next substitution we're going to do is for the fat. So the back of the box calls for half a cup of vegetable oil. So we're going to substitute that with twice the amount of melted butter. So 1 cup of butter, and that equals 2 sticks. Now, there's been a long debate on whether or not to use salted butter or unsalted butter. Now, go ahead and use unsalted butter if you have taste buds that are refined. Mine aren't, I guess. So, and I always have salted butter on hand. I use salted butter and it turns out great. Other people have used my hacks before and they use unsalted butter and it turns out great. So really, I would just use what you have on hand. Just don't use margarine, use real butter. So we're going to melt the butter and melt it to where it's about half melted, and then just stir it to melt the rest because we are going to add some eggs next and we don't want to scramble our eggs. That would be unappetizing. Next, we're going to add our eggs. The recipe calls for 3 eggs, and I'm going to add 1 extra egg here. Now, make sure you crack these into a bowl so you don't accidentally get some shells in there. I do it inevitably every time that I don't add them to a bowl first. But first, we're going to add the second secret ingredient, which is a 1/4 cup of Hershey's chocolate syrup, or your favorite chocolate syrup. If you like these types of videos, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I have a ton of other box cake mix hack recipes and also other ways to use box cake mixes to save you time and money in the kitchen. So I'm going to mix the ingredients in my bowl and then add 1 egg at a time to make sure they all get mixed in and incorporated. Okay, now if you have a cake mix that has less than 15.25 ounces, I think they're 13.25. I still have been finding the 15.25, so I don't know if they've made a change or what, but if you do have a 13.25, don't worry. Buy an extra cake mix, add 4 tablespoons of cake mix to your batter to make 15.25 ounces, and that will allow you to follow the directions exactly from here on out. There are a couple other things you could do, for example, like reduce the amount of fat, but this is probably just the easiest way. Then you can keep that in like a freezer bag, put it in the freezer or in a mason jar, and it'll stay good for a really long time. You can just pull from it whenever you need it. Okay, third secret ingredient is mini chocolate chips. Now, I didn't measure these. I did like a palmful. I think ended up being about a half a cup. A small palmful is about a 1/4 cup, and I did 2. So mix those into your batter as the last ingredient, and yes, I did taste it with raw egg. Can you believe that? But this is for my family. I'm just a novice baker. Like, I'm an at-home baker. I do it for fun and for my family and friends, so I hope nobody got offended by that. All right, these are the pans that I'm going to use for this cake. So I'm going to use 6-inch pans. I'm kind of over using 8 and 9-inch pans. I'm really liking to have the height in my cakes now, and if you use a 9-inch or an 8-inch pan, with one box cake mix, you don't really get much height. So you can always do that and make a double batch, but I usually don't need that much cake. And this recipe usually is enough for my family as it is. So I'm just using the 6-inch. I like it. I use 3 6-inch cake pans. I will link those down below if you're interested. I use them all the time, and I don't really use my 8 or 9-inch ones anymore. I'm also going to make some cupcakes with the leftover batter. So I'm just taking a 1 cup measuring cup, and I'm going to divvy out, or maybe it's a half a cup. It's not a cup. I think it's a half a cup. I'm going to divvy out the batter until I get to about half full. I'm going to make it even amongst the 3 pans so that we have even layers. So this is going to be a 3-layer, 3-tiered cake. It's going to be so good. And then I'm going to make some cupcakes too, because why not? I'm going to have extra batter. So I'm going to go ahead and spray my liners, because I don't know, everything sticks for me, and if I spray my liners, they don't stick. I don't know. Let me know. Do you have that problem, or is it just me? And then I'm using an ice cream scoop. It's the perfect size for the perfect amount of batter in cupcake liners. I can't remember what it is. I'll link it down below. It comes in a pack of 3, and I use them all the time for everything, not just this, not just for ice cream. I use them all the time for lots of different uses. So I'm going to spread out the batter in the cake pans to get them nice and even. Just help out with ensuring that they stay as even as possible. And we're going to bake these off in an oven. Now, one trick I've found is to bake your cake at a lower temperature than what the box calls for. Bake it at a lower temperature for a longer amount of time. So we're going to bake it at 325 degrees. And I baked these for about 28 minutes. Now, it's going to vary for you, somewhere between 25 and 30 minutes at 325 degrees for your cakes, and 15 minutes for your cupcakes. Now, I took them out of the oven, and as soon as they are cool enough to touch, but still hot, cover them with saran wrap. I'm using the press and seal. Pop them in the freezer while they're hot. Yes, you heard me right. Pop them in the freezer. This is going to lock in the moisture. You're going to be so surprised. And you can freeze your cupcakes too, but that's not really necessary because they're going to disappear quickly. All right, I'm freezing these overnight. Freeze them for at least 2 hours, but go ahead and freeze them overnight. Save yourself some time. Do things in increments. That's what I do. So next up is the frosting recipe. I am going to use 2 containers of Duncan Hines milk chocolate frosting for this frosting hack. You guys, stay with me here. 2 containers of chocolate frosting, and then we are going to make some additions and do some things to it that's going to make it pipeable. So add it to your mixer, and then the first ingredient we're going to add to this is some vanilla. So go ahead and add 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Don't use the imitation, just get some from Walmart, the pure vanilla extract. And then we're going to add some powdered sugar to thicken it up. We're going to add 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar. You can sift it if you want, and I never do. I'm not a professional. I don't know. It always turns out great. So next secret ingredient is going to be 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. This is really going to amp up the flavor of that chocolate. And then, again, we're going to add a 1/4 cup. No, not a 1/4 cup. I about made a big mistake there. 2 tablespoons of room temperature coffee. You're not going to be able to taste the coffee in the cake or the frosting. It brings out the chocolate flavor so much. You're just going to be so surprised. I can't wait for you to try it. It really is like a hack. It's a great hack, a great trick for chocolate. Okay, we're going to mix it up until everything's combined, and then you want to scrape down the sides of the bowl to make sure you get all that powdered sugar and everything combined. You can see how it's darker on the bottom. So scrape it up and then mix again. And we're just going to mix for like 10 minutes. This is going to increase the volume of the frosting and make it really airy. And then what we're going to do is pop it in the refrigerator. Now, you guys, this is going to make the frosting so pipeable. So you can see it's just a little bit loose. I mean, it's actually really, really good. It's not nearly as loose as it was coming straight from the container, but when you add it to the refrigerator, cover it with the press and seal saran wrap, pop it in the refrigerator for, again, at least 2 hours. You can do it overnight too. Now, the longer it's in the refrigerator, the colder and harder it's going to be. So if you leave it in there for a long time, you might have to let it sit out at room temperature for just a little bit so that you can pipe with it. Otherwise, it's going to be really thick. But this makes the most pipeable frosting. It's the best frosting hack. You're going to be very impressed. So we're going to remove the cakes. This is, again, the next day. So they've been freezing for like 24 hours, I think. So I got them out of the freezer, and now we're going to assemble. So pop the cake out, take the parchment paper liner. I forgot to mention that. Like I said, I'm always paranoid about everything sticking. So the parchment paper liner and the nonstick spray is a must. Now we're going to assemble everything. So I'm going to get my layers as flat as I can. Now these are frozen. Look how easy it is to just cut through this cake. I'm just using a bread knife so that it's long enough to fit through the entire cake. And it's so easy when it's frozen. There's no way you'd have been able to do that with a cake that wasn't frozen. And also save those pieces because they're going to be a perfect snack for you. So I have the first layer down, and I'm just going to continue with the second and third layer, getting them nice and level, and take the parchment paper lining off. You don't want to accidentally forget that before you assemble your cake. So I'm stacking them up, and I'm going to see what needs to be leveled out and what is already level enough. So, I mean, you're literally just cutting through it like butter. It works great. Look how flat it is. Perfect. All right. I got my chocolate frosting out of the refrigerator, and look at that. It's not falling off the spoon. This is going to be perfect for piping. So I have all my supplies here. This is what I'm using. I got this cake kit off of Amazon. Well, I didn't get it off of Amazon. You can get it on Amazon. The company actually sent it to me, and I was like, oh wow, this is great. It's all together in one. So if you're just like a hobby baker like me who likes to make sweet treats for your family and friends, this would be a perfect purchase for you because it's everything you need all in one, and it's not like a ton of different supplies. It's just a few what you need. It's Kutek brand, and that's where the turntable came from, and that's where the piping tips and bags came from. And it's just everything you need to make a cake at home. And the turntable also is a pedestal too, so it's 2 in 1. So I'm going to use a couple different tips here. I just put the base of the tip in here because right now I'm going to just throw a bunch of frosting on the cake, not in a fancy way at all, just to get it all covered and just to get a lot of frosting onto the cake quickly. So these are the layers. I forgot to put some frosting on the turntable so that it sticks and doesn't slide around. So I'm just going to add some frosting in between each layer. Now, here's a tip. Don't add too much frosting because if you do, it's going to squeeze out the sides and bulge. You will know what I mean if it happens to you. It's frustrating because the weight of the cake might be too heavy and it could bulge out the layers, your frosting layers in between. So don't put too much. So adding the frosting in between each layer, and then the top layer of the cake, we're going to flip upside down because when you bake the cake, the bottom of the pan, it's always going to be the flattest. So you always want to flip the top layer upside down to where the bottom is on the top, just like that. Now for the fun part, and what always seems to be the most difficult part, but I'm going to show you how freezing your cake and using this frosting hack is going to make decorating this cake a breeze. So we're just icing on our chocolate frosting the outside of the cake, and we're not going to do a crumb layer because A, we don't have time for that, and B, we don't need to do that because our cake is frozen, so the crumbs aren't going to pull off. And if you're wondering what that means, like a lot of professional bakers will do a crumb coat or a thin, messy coat of frosting first, and then do a neat outside layer. So again, this doesn't need to be pretty because we're going to smooth it all out, but we don't need to take the time to do the crumb coat. It's going to be fine. See how handy this little turntable pedestal is? Really, it's the best invention ever. All right, I'm out of focus here a little bit, but So I'm just putting on some frosting as much as I can to fill those gaps, so it makes it as easy as possible to go ahead and use this bench scraper. Now you can use anything like with a flat edge. This bench scraper I've had forever. I'll link one down below if you don't have it, but it is good to like scoop vegetables off the cutting board and into the pan. It's good to cut dough. It's good to smooth out frosting just like this. I'll link one down below in my Amazon storefront if you don't have one. But the Kutek kit also comes with some scrapers too. I just like this because it's taller and bigger and you can get around the whole cake using it. So look how simple that is. Now you guys, you can do this. Look how smooth and clean and yummy this looks. And just fill in the little spots that have any gaps or holes in your frosting. And then just do a continuous smooth motion to get a clean, crisp result. Now I'm just going to work on any finishing touches on the outside and then move to the top before I put a piping tip on and start making some decorations. Now I don't know if I mentioned, this is for my grandma's 94th birthday. She requested a chocolate cake, so I had to make this the best cake ever. And it was. I've made it again since making this video, and everyone loved it. And my husband actually said this is the best chocolate cake he's ever had. I'm telling you, it's lovely. It really is. Now, if chocolate isn't your flavor, I have a whole playlist of different box cake mix hacks. I'll list the playlist right up here in the iCard above and below in case you want to check out some of those. All right, now I missed some footage here, but I am just piping on some swirls on the top of the cake, and then I'm going to pipe a little line where the cake meets the turntable, and that's going to be it. It's going to be pretty simple. And then let's not forget we have the cupcakes too. Now I'm going to frost these 4 cupcakes because the rest of them didn't even make it to the frosting process because me and my kids and my husband ate them all. So we only have 4 cupcakes to frost, but the recipe does make more. So here's the finished product for my grandma's 94th birthday cake, chocolate requested, and she loved it. It was perfect. And lastly, I'm just going to add a few of those mini chocolate chips to the swirls on top, and then voila. Final product. Everyone loved it. 94. Can't forget the 94 candles. Happy 94th birthday, Grandma. Okay, everybody, so that is it. That is the chocolate cake recipe. Super simple, right? And I mean, this type of cake would have cost me in my small town close to $100. And I mean, no, this cost me maybe 20, not even 20. Like, I had most of the stuff on hand, so let's say 10. It cost me $10. Let's say that. So this recipe is my go-to. It's going to be your go-to. Save it, share it, like it. You're going to love it. Holler at me down below if you have any questions about how I did anything. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.